Hi there, this is the Divine Miss Mickey. Now this could be a long video. I'm going to try and not go into too much detail, but there's a lot of detail with what what I want to tell you. You see, today is a pretty special day for me. In Australia, it's the 26th of January and it's Australia Day. But for me, it's my dad's birthday. He's in spirit, but I still think of him and I still find a way to celebrate his birthday, celebrate his life. And this is the best way I think I could honour my dad is to tell his story. Now, most people, well not, yeah, most people I guess would in some way think of their dad as a hero. And most daughters do think of their dad as a hero. And for some, this is especially true because their dads really are a hero. And I'm one of them. See, my dad in his country of birth is considered a hero. He did something that makes me very, very proud. So first I'm going to give you some historical facts. My dad was born in an area, Malshitsa, in, I didn't swear then, in what was then Czechoslovakia. It's south of Prague. He lived, his family lived in Tabor. And in 1948, early 1948, Dad went on holidays out of the country. When he came back, things were very, very different. So here's the historical facts that I picked up a few things. So I'm going to read it. That's why I'll be looking over here. Before the Prague Offensive in 1945, Edvard Beneš, the Czechoslovak leader, agreed to Soviet leader Joseph Stalin's demands for unconditional agreement with Soviet foreign policy and the Beneš decrees. On the 25th of February 1948, Beneš, fearful of a civil war and Soviet intervention, capitulated and appointed a communist-dominated government who was sworn in 2 days later. Now, the source of that is Wikipedia. I also have that in May, the Communist Party was made official. That was May of 1948. What is not on Wikipedia, what is not in the history books, is that Beneš, in 1948, after the communists came in, he'd been very sick and he wanted to leave. And the resistance movement nearly got him out. They nearly saved him. They came so close. And I know about this because my dad was instrumental and one of the founders of the first resistance movement to the communist government in 1948. I grew up knowing that Dad had done certain things, just that, you know, he'd sort of been a bit of a rebel in Czechoslovakia, and I thought, well, yeah, I take after him. I'm been a bit of a rebel myself. And then over time, I found out more. So I'm going to tell you some of his story. And I'm not only dedicating it to my dad, but I'm dedicating it to all the incredibly brave souls, some who didn't make it past that time, who gave their lives so that others could survive. I want to dedicate it to them as well, because they were there and they did it, and they're not in the history books. This is not in the history books. but it happened. So anyway, my dad, he came back from holidays and it was a Communist Party. He was told, join the Communist Party or else. That meant that you either did as you were told or you were going to disappear. You could end up in a jail, in a prison camp, or just literally disappear. And that's the reality of what was going on. They didn't hold elections. They were told who to vote for. And if you defied them, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for you at all. Dad told me a story of an old bloke in his village who, at the polling booth, he spoke up. And he said, what are you doing? Why are you letting them tell you who to vote for? Of course, that was in Czech. But why are you letting them tell you who to vote for? That night he was beaten to death. My dad knew who did it. A lot of people knew who did it. So anyway, when Dad was told that he had to join the Communist Party or else, Dad, being a 20-year-old rebellious boy, man, he said, no, I'm not doing that. But he had, I think it was an uncle that was actually in the Communist Party, and he found out a lot of home truths, things that the Communist Party didn't want other people to know. And at his work, he worked for a printer's, and I think it was a printer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a printer. But anyway, he would, when everyone had left, he would get into the boss's office, and on the boss's typewriter and typeset, he would print up these pamphlets. And in the middle of the night, he would pedal on his bike as far as he could to as many villages as he could. And he would put the secrets that he'd printed up, he'd put them in places where people could read them. And then he'd pedal back, and he came so close to being caught that many times. It was incredible. My dad was very looked after by angels. So he was doing this for a while, and of course he was really peeing off the Communist Party. They weren't happy with that. And they decided they were going to try and find the typewriter. So they went to every place possible that there would be a typewriter, testing out, because every typewriter, you know, the old manual ones, they had their little quirks. And they got to Dad's work and they were testing out, they tested even Dad's typewriter. No, they went to go to the boss's office and someone said, no mate, he's a member of the Communist Party. It's not going to be him. And so they left it alone. If they had tested that, the jig would have been up. So this went on for a while, and then someone else that Dad knew came to Dad and said, it's you doing this, isn't it? Dad goes, I don't know what you're talking about. No, mate, it's you. You're the one doing this. Yeah, Dad admitted it. He said, well, what are you doing? Join with us. We're starting a resistance movement. We're getting people out of the country. We're doing what we can to change this. Because they had a contact in the Communist Party who would let them know if someone was going to be taken the next day, because that's what would happen. People would be taken. And so it was then for the resistance to quickly try and grab that person and get them out of the country, get them to safety. And a lot of lives were saved this way. And then came that finally they started getting on to Dad. There was a house across the road from where Dad's family home was in Tarbell, and they were watching it. So someone got on to Dad and said, "You're being watched, mate. They're on to you." So Dad realised, uh-oh, this could be a problem. And Dad was the only one who knew all the names of all the contacts. So in code, he wrote down all the names of the contacts on a piece of paper, and then he stuck it inside his old guitar. And he took off to Prague. When he got to Prague, he realised that he hadn't told anyone what he'd done. So he sent a message back home to say, please bring the old guitar to the Prague railway station. And he got to the railway station and he saw that they brought his new guitar. And he was so upset by this. He was like, what are you doing? I wanted the other guitar. And he didn't realise that suddenly two big burly blokes either side of him, guns stuck in the side of him, come with us. They were the special police that they had. And Dad knew the jig was up then. So knowing my dad, he would have been figuring out how he was going to get out of this one. And he played innocent. And he played, I was just asked to do this. I didn't know what I was doing. And he managed to get around. Plus his dad knew someone that was high up there. So Dad went into the prison. He was beaten so badly that it was something like, I think, 50 years later, I think, that when he snapped his Achilles tendon jumping over a ditch. Dad was not a spring chicken at that time. And when they did x-rays and scans on it, they actually found a break that they dated back to 1948. And that would have been when Dad was in the prison. But let's go back to that code. Nobody knew what the code was. They figured out that there was something inside the old guitar. They found it, but they couldn't figure out Dad's code. So his mother went into the prison to visit him, and just as she asked what was the code, the prison guard had a coughing fit and had to go outside. The prison guard was one of them, was one of the resistance movement. So Dad was able to give her the code. After a lot of sort of toing and froing and all sorts of stuff, Dad was put into, he was tried, he was found guilty on a much lesser charge, and I think he was given 5 years in a prison camp. They were not good prison camps. But he went there, and he had his 21st birthday there. My grandmother, his mother, was able to get special rations sent into the prison for Dad to be given. And the way Dad got him was one of the guards who was on their side and liked Dad. And he said, You clean those toilets. Those toilets are filthy. You've done an awful... Dad's going, what are you talking about? Go and do it, and you make sure you do a really good job behind that toilet. Dad's thinking, what are you going on about? But he went and did it and found it. And as was Dad, rather than just keeping it all to himself, he shared it with people that he knew, some of his friends in there. And they had a little 21st birthday party for him. But that was one of the good things that happened. Now comes some of the miracles, some of the amazing things. was when Dad was in the prison camp. He had organised with some people on the outside, because he did sometimes get a visitor. He had been able to get contact out that there was an old mine shaft that was going to be blown up the next day. And he organised for his friends to drive their car at a certain time to the top of the mine shaft. Dad would climb up, get in the car, off they'd go. Well, what Dad didn't know was on that day was there had been a murder in the area and the whole thing had been sealed off. The whole area was sealed off. So Dad got away from the other miners, prisoners, and got to the mine shaft, and he started climbing up, and about 6 feet from the top he ran out of metal rungs, and there was just rock. And as he was about to start trying to climb the rock, what Dad didn't know till later was Commandant had been talking to, I think he was a head prison guard. He'd been talking to some other people and suddenly got the urge to run over to the mine shaft. And as Dad was about to jump, not jump, but about to climb the rock, the guy was at the top of the mine shaft and he looked down at Dad and he said, "Don't move. Don't move. Don't try to climb. That's loose rock. If you try and climb that, you will fall to your death. Just climb down, and as long as you make it when the last of the other prisoners are going out, I won't say a thing." And Dad's looking up going, do I trust him? But he didn't really have much choice, so he climbed back down and he just made it. Just made the last of the prisoners walking out. And as he walked out, he saw this head guard who looked at him and then looked away and started talking to other people. And that was it. Dad just went about doing the same things. There was another time where the prisoners were all lined up. And there was a commandant there from a uranium mine. Now, that was a death sentence. If you went to that, you could kiss your life goodbye. And this guy was walking along, stopping and going, "Da, da, da." And he stopped in front of Dad and he went, "Da," and picked the guy next to Dad. And that was another miracle for Dad. And then comes the time when Dad did escape. He had figured out how to do it himself. I won't go into all the details, but it is in his script. My dad did write a script. It does need to be reworked because he didn't always write things the best way, but the story is there. And anyway, so he's in the barracks, and there was this guy who used to read playing cards, like tarot, but they were playing cards. And so he asked Dad, "Do you want to have your cards read?" Now, Dad knew he was going to escape in 3 days. And Dad thought, what do I do? Oh, okay. So he shuffled them. He cut them. Out came these cards. The guy said, "Mate, you're going to a land of sun and sea and surf. You're going to a land of freedom." And Dad looked at the snow falling outside the window and round the barracks they were in and went, "Really? I don't think so." That was it. The next night, the guy asked him again. And Dad thinking, oh, well, I'll try and play it cool, because there were often spies in the barracks. So Dad thought, I'll play it cool. He said, "Yeah, okay." So Dad shuffled. Another guy shuffled. Another guy cut the cards. Out came exactly the same cards in exactly the same order. Now, I've been reading cards for a long time, and that is incredibly rare. I don't think it's ever happened to me, and I don't know if it's happened to other readers, but you can have similar. you can have certain cards repeat, but to have exactly the same cards in exactly the same order 2 nights in a row, when on the second time you've got the other energies of a couple of other people. There was a message getting through, and it came through, and he said, "You're going. This land awaits you." And Dad's going, "Oh, really? Come on." Of course, Dad's getting pretty nervous, but he's like, "No, this is all rubbish." The night before Dad knew he was going to escape, the guy asked him again, "Do you want to have your cards read?" And Dad went, "Okay." Shuffle. Another guy shuffled, another guy shuffled, another guy shuffled, another guy shuffled, another guy cut, another guy cut, another guy cut. Out came exactly the same cards in exactly the same order. It was destiny. So this guy's going, "You bastard, you're leaving." Dad's getting pretty nervous, but he's going, "Come on, this is all rubbish. No, this is a setup. No. You would think that after that happened that Dad would be a believer in tarot cards and all that. But no, he was a skeptic till the day he died. You know, he thinks differently now, but he was a total skeptic. But he did escape the next day. And he went to Germany. Now, what Dad didn't know is one of the guys high up in the resistance movement had just managed to escape to Germany, but his family had been taken in as political prisoners. So this guy, he found Dad in Germany, and he said, "I want the layout of the prison because I'm going back in to get my family." And Dad said, "Better than that, I'm coming with you." So they went back in, and they freed the whole prison of political prisoners, because this was just political prisoners. They weren't the criminals, that sort of thing. Political prisoners, men, women, they freed them. They took what they could in the truck and car they had and started heading for the border. Radio silence. They got to a certain point and they realised they were being chased. Now, at this stage, the car had broken down or run off the road, so they got everyone they could into the truck. It was very overloaded. There were a few gun battles because by this time they had to radio ahead and say, "We are being chased, can you please help keep them at bay so that we can get out of here, otherwise they're going to kill us." And so they would pass through village after village, and the people in the villages, some gave their lives so that those in the truck could survive. And at some stage, 2 of the guys that were in the truck, they managed to get hold of one of those, I don't know what you call them, but those Jeep things with the big gun on the back. You can tell how good I am on that technology. But anyway, they were getting close to the border. Now, Dad had told me that at this particular part of the border, there was a hill. He said you came over the hill, you went down, round, sort of took a bend, and then onto the bridge. And on the other side of the bridge was Germany. But there was usually an ambush at the bottom of that hill. So they came up over the hill in the truck, and the ambush shot out the engine of the truck, which gave the guys in the Jeep thing with the gun a bearing on where the ambush was. So there was a gun battle. Sadly, those 2 men didn't survive. Very, very brave souls. The truck still had momentum and went down the hill, took the corner, went on the bridge and crashed in the middle of the bridge. And they're in there going, "Oh no, we're done for," because up came the communist army thing. And it was like, that's it, we're done for. We got so close, but we're done for. They had a few handguns, and they said, "Right, if we're going to die, we're going to take some of them with us." And just as they're about to jump up and start firing, and of course be shot at and killed, came on the other side of the bridge, on the other side of the river, came these American tanks. And they trained their guns down on the communists, and they said, don't fire on that truck. That truck is on neutral ground. You fire at it and we're going to blow you to smithereens. And the communists are like, okay, you're bigger than me. They're all yours. And they left. And everyone, they got out of the truck and they went to the Americans and they're thanking them so much. And they find out that not one of the tanks was loaded. And even if it was loaded, the Americans couldn't have done anything. It was too close to the end of World War II. You see, this was 1949. So it was a bluff that paid off. Now, Dad wanted actually to go to America because some of his family that had escaped and friends had gone to America. And who knows, maybe one of their descendants is watching this now and goes, oh, I heard that story. And if you are, I would love to connect with you. But if not, that's cool. So anyway, the quota to go to America was full. But there was openings to come to Australia. And my dad came to the land, the free land of sun, of sea, of surf, of sand. He came to the land he was told about in those 3 readings. And he came here as a refugee. And over time, he made a name for himself in the restaurant industry. Now, he did not want to be a chef or restaurateur. That was not his aim. He wanted to be a journalist. And to be honest, if he had made it as to be a journalist, he probably would have had cement shoes before I was born, because Dad just had a way of finding out stories and writing about it. And so he didn't have the English, and he had to find jobs. He was doing, door-to-door sales. He was doing, the Electrolux salesman, the vacuum salesman. He was doing all these jobs. And, he had, sorry, I kicked the pod. So anyway, he had my mum. He met my mum at college, and the way he met her was that she threw a ruler at him because she thought, oh, he looks interesting. The rest is history. But Mum had I'm pretty sure Mum had my brother and was pregnant with my sister. I think that was it. So anyway, Dad had found out about a dishwasher job at a restaurant. And he went there to get the job, but found out that it had already been taken. So in what little English he had, he convinced them that he was a top head waiter from Europe, but he had to learn the Australian way. And every time he made a mistake, he said, oh, but we did it differently back there. And he was really, really grateful that nobody ever asked him how they did it. And that's how he ended up in the restaurant industry. He literally faked it till he made it. And he owned a number of restaurants, very successful. He created a lot of dishes. At one stage, he was the night bar manager at the Parmelia Hilton in Perth. Well, it was the Parmelia then. It the Hilton Group hadn't bought it at that stage. So that was 1974, I think. And as a night bar manager, people talked, and he found out a lot of things, including a major corruption ring in Australia. And what does he do? He sends a letter to someone high up in Canberra explaining a little bit of what he knew, and then found out that that guy was one of the big wigs in the corruption ring. So it was a bit of a worry. In fact, there was a time when Dad had a journalist friend. Mario, if you're watching, hello. But Mario came round to the house we were living in, and he's, where's Peter? Where's Peter? And we were like, what are you talking about? I can't find him. I don't know where he is. We're starting to get a bit panicking. Nobody knew where Dad was, you know. And just as we're really having kittens, in walks Dad with his golf clubs. That was Dad. That's how he worked. So Dad did eventually write a book about the restaurant industry, true stories, and I have actually given a few stories in one of my videos about Don't Piss Off the Chef, and there's a lot more. But there's only if you can get your hands on a copy, it's like, would be like gold, because I don't know, I was only a small amount of copies ever made, because the publisher went broke, and Dad sort of got what copies he could of his book and other books, and he sort of worked at promoting his own book and selling also the books of other people. And actually had a book launching in Sydney at a very prestigious restaurant. I think it was Johnny Walker's then, like the Scotch, but it wasn't the Scotch. And Dad had said to me, no singing telegrams, no flim-flam. This is an important book launching, and there's going to be politicians and parliamentarians and very important people there. Well, he didn't say I couldn't send him a stripogram, so I did. And people said it was the best book launching they'd ever been to. And when she was gone, Dad just went looking around saying, where is she? But we had a good laugh about it. And there was another time I sent him a gorillagram to a restaurant he was in, and it was connected with a theatre, and Dad was, he ran the restaurant, and it was his birthday, and he knew I was up to something because I didn't wish him happy birthday. But anyway, I organised a gorillagram, and people are in the matinee. There are other people there having their dinner. So, after they'd finished their dinner, then they would have gone for the next performance. So anyway, I snuck in to the restaurant, and I went round to all the tables and explained that it was my dad's birthday, that we were going to have a surprise for him, and that I'd really love it if, when the time was right, everyone sung happy birthday to him. And most of the people there were, yeah, cool. So we had it worked out that the box office would call Dad to come upstairs because the restaurant was down below. And Dad would not go upstairs. So my mother walked in and said, Peter, you go up there and you find what they want now. That's how my mum talked. And Dad threw down the tea towel, stormed up, went to go upstairs, and I'm going, Dad, Dad. I'm over sort of where the restaurant is, and he looked and he saw me and got a silly grin because he knew, uh-oh, she's up to something. So I got him to come over, turned to face everyone, and then I went 1, 2, 3, and the whole restaurant sung him happy birthday. And then he turned to leave and walked back to the kitchen, and everyone cracked up laughing because Dad had a big split in his pants, in his trousers. So, he didn't think anyone would see him. And then as he's about to head back, down comes the gorillagram. And we ended up having bananas flying around the room and everything. And they had to tell us, the box office, the people in the theatre had to tell us to shut up because they could hear us in the theatre. Now, there's pretty thick walls there, but we caused a ruckus. So that's just a little bit about my dad. The main story I wanted to tell you was about what he did in Czechoslovakia, and I've condensed it a lot. There's so much more to the story. So if anyone out there knows a producer, a good director, who would be interested in a true story, let them know. Show them this video. Who knows? It's a story that needs to be told because it wasn't just my dad. It was a lot of other people. A lot of other people and a lot of other brave souls who gave their life, and they deserve the recognition because they took on something that was pretty big. And although they didn't win, that was another thing I was going to say about Bernice, the president at that time. I think I might have touched on it, but Bernice wanted out, and they worked it out with his then doctor, and they had it down to the very day they were going to come and they were going to grab him and get him out of the country because he'd had enough. He knew that he couldn't stay there. And sadly, the week before, suddenly the doctor was sacked and a communist doctor was brought in, and 3 weeks later Bernice was dead. That is the story my dad told me, but that's not what was written in the books, in the Google. But when you're talking about a communist country, don't expect the truth. You know, it's the people who think they know what communism is about. Learn the truth. To my friends in America, I applaud those speaking up and not believing the crap about the Democrats leading them down communism, because that is absolutely untrue. I hear people talk, that's communism. And I'm looking going, no. There are some things I've seen that it's like, oh, this is starting to go down a very bad road. And that's even happened here in Australia. Let's just say that, say 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, it was heading down a slippery slope that was not good, but I could understand the motivation. I could understand the misinformation, but it wasn't always a good thing. So anyway, I'm digressing onto something else. Well, I'm sweating because I can't have the fan on me because it affects the mic. But I hope you've enjoyed the story. I think you can understand why I'm pretty proud of my dad. I hope to put on the end of this, if I can work it, a video. I got half the story on video before my dad passed. And I'm also going to put a couple of pictures of him so you know who I'm talking about. He was a short, unassuming man who had a dry dad humour. There were times we'd just go, oh my God, you didn't say that, did you? And he did some naughty things in restaurants, cheeky, but he had a strong sense of justice, and he stood up against injustice. We need more of that. You don't have to be violent. Unfortunately, in Czechoslovakia, they had to do some things that were not good for the sake of saving lives. And Dad had to take a life in order to save his life and the lives of his friends who were there with him. It was the person who had killed the gentleman, the elderly gentleman who had stood up at the voting booth. And Dad carried that for the rest of his life, that he'd had to take a life. But it was incredible bravery. They were young and they just couldn't stand that this elderly man was beaten so cruelly. They made a stand. And it's a hard thing. It's a very hard thing for anyone to have to live with. I hope that maybe from this, some of you, because I know some people are already there where they don't hold anything negative against refugees, because these are people escaping something bad. But for those who don't understand, refugees are people trying to escape something bad. They can't always go stand in a queue and do it the correct way, because some countries that is not an option. So I hope that you can understand this, learn from it, and be entertained as well. Because, yeah, it's a pretty cool story. There's a lot more to it, and I'll try and find a clip where Dad's talking about something that I didn't talk about. So this doesn't get too long, I shall bid you adieu, and I'm going to send you loads and loads of love. I've been feeling the love today. That's beautiful. Oh, just let love fill your heart. Oh, it's been wonderful. I had messages from my dad today, and that was it. There's amazing people on YouTube, and today was a perfect day for me to get messages from my dad. And it filled my heart. My heart's just been so full of love all day. And I want to give some of that love to you. I want your heart to be filled with love, because it's pretty good. And on that note, I'm going to say see you later. Until next time. Bye.
So I was quite surprised, because I had no handcuffs on. We were just walking together like two people, amongst all the other people in the street. What I learned later on was that ahead of us was a police car with two detectives, and behind us was another police car with another two detectives, in case it was a try to see whether anybody connected with me would try to spring me. Yeah? But he just went along, got in the jail, and in the jail the chief inspector said to the warder there, we have finished with him now, so I am passing him into the legal section, and tomorrow the chief legal counsel will come and interview him. Yeah. So that was that. And what happened was that the sergeant still wanted to do something, but the chief inspector told him, no, he's out of our hands now. Yeah. So what happened was, I learned this later, the chief inspector went home and was going on 2 days holidays after that, yeah. And the sergeant was to be in charge there. He was inspector by then. He was promoted, yeah. So in the morning, suddenly I was woken up about 8 o'clock and taken down to the bottom of the office of the jail, where the inspector was waiting, yeah. And there the warder there was the same warder that the chief inspector saw the day before and gave him instructions, yeah. So the warder said to the inspector, "Look, I have instructions to keep him here for the legal section." And the inspector said, "Look, listen, I direct what's going to be happening. I'm in charge now for the next 2 days. So we do what I want." And so I'm taking him back to the STB for interrogation, yeah. And what happened then, I learned later, was that once I left with the inspector, the warder got on the phone to the chief inspector and told him what happened. And apparently the chief inspector hit the roof, yeah. I was taken into the interrogating room of the STB building, yeah, which was at the bottom. It was a sort of oblong room with one side on the wall was a wooden plank, like a bed, wooden plank. So when he took me down there, he had another detective with him, and he started to ask questions, yeah. While this was happening, the warder rang the chief inspector and told him what happened, yeah. Chief inspector hit the roof and jumped in the car and raced to the jail, to the office, to the STB office. At that time, the inspector was getting really hostile and started to bash me, yeah. He was bashing me around here and then in the face. He broke my nose, and I think after a few more hits, he told the detective to string me up, yeah. Stringing me up was to put me on the wooden planks, face down, yeah, and with my feet stretched out on the wood, yeah. And he had a big truncheon. So he asked again, "Come on, you bastard, tell us what you know." And I said, "I told you what I know. I told you everything." And he then went and whacked me on the soles with his truncheon. Oh, but the pain was unbelievable, yeah. I was almost passing out, and I was calling out, "All right, all right, all right." And then suddenly there is a shot fired in the room. It was the chief inspector with a gun, pointing at the inspector as if, "You don't put the truncheon down, this goes right in your head," yeah. And the inspector said, "You would do it, wouldn't you?" He said, "Yes, I would do it. You disobeyed orders," yeah. So he said, "Well, you go out of here," and the other detective too, "and send someone here and send the doctor down here," yeah. So they patched me up as best as they could when the doctor came. They patched me up and then took me back to the jail. Yeah. And I was really suffering, because when you get hit on this here, and you got this on the hard plate, all those bones get crushed. Yeah. And I could not really properly walk. And anyway, so they put me in bed in the jail, and in the morning I wake up to the sound of steps coming towards the cell door. I thought, hell, not another interrogation. No. And I was looking for something to do. I found a piece of a broken razor blade, and I was trying to fit it into the what we had for heating, which was a sort of a metal stove. Yeah. I tried to fit it in so that I could cut my wrists. Yeah. It didn't stay. It wouldn't stay, and by the time I could pick it up again, the door was already open. Anyway, the warden came in, which was the good warden, the one that alerted the chief inspector on what was happening. And with him there was another man, yeah, but not a detective, not any detectives. So I slowly turned in the bed to face them, and this man said, "Oh, they made a mess out of you, didn't they?" I said, "Oh yes, they did." And he said, "Well, don't worry, you are out of their hands now. You are with me. And by the way, my name is Borovichka, and I am your father's friend." And then I realized who it was. It was the one that my dad and the fellow who owned the mill and this one used to get drunk down near the river in the mill every 2 or 3 weeks. So I was more relaxed then, because I knew that I was in safe hands. Yeah. So he said, "Look, we will patch you up better than what you are now, and then we will start proceeding for the court case to come along." Yeah. The warder went away, and so he said to me, "I can't do much for you, but I will try." Yeah. So then after I was patched up, he said it will take about a week before I come back, and then we will have to take evidence for the court case. Yeah. Now what happened then was that he decided that he's going to get me completely out of the police hands. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, keep going.
What was that?
What happened?
It might be up here.
Oh, Scotty.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So he went to see the chairman of the Politburo and told him about my arrest and that I'm charged with distributing of pamphlets and so on. And he said that they could make a really a show trial out of it there. They were desperately needing apparently somebody for a show trial. Yeah, and so he said this would be a perfect occasion because, unknown to the chairman, I was a nephew of the leader of the Socialist Party, which was disbanded by then. Yeah. So the chairman rang the chief inspector to see what was happening, yeah, and whether I am able to be passed completely onto the legal section. And the chief inspector said yes. Yeah. So anyway, just trying to recollect what Borovička did then. He organized it as a show trial, which was to be presided by a chief justice from Prague. Yeah. And when my father and Borovička and the mill owner were again at one of the sessions there on the Sunday afternoon, yeah, my father thanked him for helping me to get out of the police hands. Yeah. But Borovička said, well, this is not all. I am working on something else. Yeah. He said the prosecution will be asking for 15 years jail. Yeah. Now we can't have him be sentenced any more than 6 years, because that will enable him to be not rotting in the jail but working outside in factories or mines or something like that. Yeah. So he said, I will be talking to the Chief Justice when he comes along, and I think I can get the sentence brought down lower than 10. Yeah. And my father said to him, well, how could you do that? And he said, well, he owes me. Yeah. So when the trial was when the trial came along, yeah, the Chief Justice, the night before, Chief Justice went and spent the night at Borovička, where apparently they got stuck into some red wine. And during the drinking and conversation, the Chief Justice said, well, you didn't bring me here for this. What is it that you want? And Borovička said, well, I want him to be no longer than 10 years sentenced. Yeah, sentenced to no longer than 10 years. And Chief Justice said, how about 6 years? Borovička, well, that will do. He said, the Chief Justice said, I know why this is, because you saved my bacon just after the war, when I did something that the party didn't like, and you went in for me, so this is payback. Yeah, we are square now. Yeah. And sure enough, at the trial, and Borovička also said, well, what about the other 5 members of the judiciary? Yeah, there were 2 army generals and another 2 civilians. Yeah, that was the 5 of them altogether. And the Chief Justice said, they will do what I tell them to do if they think their life is worth living. Yeah. It has happened at the trial. The prosecutors asked for 15 years, and when the judiciary came back after a break to consider the verdict, yeah, he announced that the sentence will be 6 years. Yeah. That created an absolute uproar in the city and in the newspapers. There were big headlines: "A traitor gets only 6 years. Shame." Yeah, things like that. But what it enabled was that I would be able to go on out of the jail work. Yeah. I was taken back from the court scene. I was taken back to the jail, and this time I was in a proper cell. Yeah, where we sharing it with another 3 prisoners. Yeah? But they were not there because they were working in the workshop. And the warden brought me to the cell, showed me where my bed was and then he said, "I just want to tell you, you don't belong here. You're not a criminal. Yeah. You're not like these fellows here. So I just want to tell you, I don't agree with it, and I will help you as much as I can." Yeah. Which I appreciated very much. Yeah, it was quite unusual for someone like that in that position to be so open. Yeah. And so that's my lawyer lodged an appeal